back to anyone who's listening to this or watching this on YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in and for giving us your time and attention. Today, Rory and I wanted to chat a little bit about expectations, like how having expectations for your job, your life, your career, your health, how that can impact sort of your happiness, the way you see the world, and I guess the direction that you go in life. So do you want to unpack just a little bit about the session you're working on today and sort of introduce the theme of expectations?
Sure. So, look, again, thank you for having me, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate the time. Look, expectations is such a massive part of life, right? Not only, just being a happy human, but also making progress and actually getting through life in an effective way where we can achieve our goals, we can reach our values. So I think expectations is, there's a really cool quote I heard about expectations, and that's that the walls you build around you to protect you are also the walls that imprison you. And I think that's very true when it comes to expectations, because they are things we create, whether we're conscious of it or not, and they really dictate what emotional state we're going to experience. If we have very strict rules, very rigid rules, it's going to make it very hard, to live a life where those rules get trampled on. So yeah, I just think expectations is something we have to tackle, because it is something that's unconscious. It's not something we focus on a lot, but it really is the deciding factor in how far we can get and what state we can kind of get into.
And I guess there's another word like standards. So you have standards for yourself, and you often hear people who are coaching and stuff, they're talking about raising your standards, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. So what's the difference between raising your standards so that you kind of push yourself to have a better life, and then also just having unrealistic expectations that are constantly making you feel, I guess, unhappy with the way life is going? How do you find that balance, and what's the difference between standards and expectations?
Well, to be honest, I think standards and expectations they're one and the same thing, right? I think it's just a different word to describe it. I think the difference there would be, when we talk about raising our standards, we're really referring to personal rules. What are your personal rules for yourself? Whereas expectations is kind of almost like a more umbrella term, where it's not only my rules by myself, but it's my rules for you. It's my rules for business. It's my rules for life, right? So raising your standards, I think, is one of the best ways to do it. The best ways to word it, because what you're essentially doing is you're taking your personal rules to a new level, right? So let's break it down even further. So, what is a personal rule? It's simply a belief about the way you think you should be, right? So that's all it essentially is. So when we talk about raising your standards, it's about changing the belief about what you believe you should be doing, what you should have, what you deserve to have. So raising your standards is really important, right? And this is a trap that I got caught in, and I'm sure you can relate to this, and I'm sure many people can relate to this. Sometimes for many of us, raising our standards is not the problem. Managing our standards, and this is what you said, managing your expectations so that they don't become unrealistic, is also super important, right? It's like, imagine playing a game, imagine playing a game of Monopoly, and your rules are that you can roll 3 times each turn, and that you can only pay rent on every third house you land on. If my rules are that I can roll 1 time and I need to pay double rent on each property, we're going to have a whole different experience of the game. It's going to be much easier for you to win, and it's going to make it much harder for me to win. Same applies to our personal rules, right? If we have standards and expectations that are unrealistically high for ourselves, it often ends up having the opposite effect, because we never hit them, and therefore we always feel bad. So yes, most of the time we do need to raise our standards, but we also have to look at the other side of the coin, right? Are our standards for what we believe we should be doing or should be, are they realistic? And that doesn't mean realistic for life. Are they realistic right now? And then we can scale up as we go. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to find the balance between the two. And I guess, what about interacting with people? I've noticed in my own life, like sometimes if I get frustrated with somebody that I'm working with, or someone who I'm friends with, or whatever it is in a relationship, like sometimes when you do get frustrated, I've found that it's because you've expected them to act a certain way. Maybe because you did something and you expect a certain reaction or something, and you don't get it, or you get the opposite, and then you get frustrated, right? Whereas if you didn't have those expectations going into that, then it's kind of like you also don't have the frustration, because you're just doing favors or helping someone out or whatever it is without the expectation of getting something in return. So how do you bring this into the realm of dealing with people?
Oh, and I think, to be honest, this is one of the biggest ones. I honestly think it becomes personal rules and then rules for other people, because I mean, look, relationships are everything, right? The quality of your relationships is the quality of your life, whether it's intimate, family, business relationships, whatever it is. So, and this is what I believe, you know, maybe you have a different idea of it, but every single conflict between a human being is nothing more than a differentiation of rules. It's a rules conflict. That's where the conflict arises, right? So, as a perfect example, right? If we look at respect, the idea of respect, my rules for respect is that if you and I have a problem, you know, we don't talk about it in public. We don't, you know, bring any of that up. We wait, we go down, we have a nice, relaxed conversation about it, where we talk it out and all these sort of things. I've had a business partner in the past who that most certainly was not his rule, right? For him, if he was going to be respectful, that means if you did something wrong, I'm going to tell you now, and I'm going to tell you loudly and passionately. Not because I'm being rude, but because I was raised to believe that that is what respect is. His rules for respect, my rules for respect, very different, right? And this is often what happened, which is so frustrating because we had the same intention, but because our rules were so different, there was conflict. And like you said, this happens in relationships all the time, right? I think you should do this, you think I should do that. So there's conflict. And I found that, you know, 80% of the time, the conflicts aren't that we actually disagree. It's just that we haven't communicated our rules sufficiently because they're our rules, right? And in our minds, we are right because that's the world we live in. We can't even step out for a second to understand that someone else has a completely different understanding of how life should work. So bringing our own rules to the surface and understanding other people's rules and communicating our rules to them effectively, I think that's how we get around those kind of rule conflicts. So yeah, I think that kind of ties on what you were saying. I mean, what is your take on that? Have you ever experienced someone with completely different rules for you?
100%. Yeah, definitely. I think, look, if we like getting personal, for me, it's more in like, I guess, in relationships. So like, I'm not, you know, necessarily the most romantic type. I don't sit around like during the day thinking about, you know, the romantic kind of things. I'm generally like zoned in on work or something that I'm thinking of, like problem solving. And I guess like in relationships, you can kind of, you know, there can come times where it gets a bit complicated there because you don't expect somebody to do something for you, and then they do something for you, and then you don't respond the right way because you're not, maybe not as grateful for it because you didn't expect it in the first place. And then the other person is expecting you to do that because they did it for you, and it can get quite complicated there. So I guess that would be one example there. But just going away from that, so I like what you said about communication. So I feel like communication is really the only way that you can get past these kind of lapses between expectations and what actually happens, because you can, you know, you can at least communicate whatever your expectations were from a situation or from a business partnership, relationship. You can communicate where your head was, and you can listen and hear what the other person or the other people, what their expectations were. Kind of like when you start a job, right? Or when you hire somebody for the first time, if you're not clear on what you expect from the person and you're just sitting back and you're noticing that they're not doing what you thought they should be doing, you got to remember that person has no idea what you thought they should be doing unless you clearly walk them through it and explain it and stuff. So I would say like communication is one of the best ways that I've found to deal with like expectations when it's with other people, with outside elements. Different story when it's with yourself, but what do you think about that communication?
Oh man, I think that's absolutely key. You know, and like you say, it shows up a lot in intimate relationships. And by intimate, I don't just mean, you know, like a partner, like a life partner. I mean business partnership. I mean, you know, I mean, business is crazy. It can get intimate from that point of view, that you're very entwined in each other's lives. So it really shows up in those areas because, like you said, there are expectations there, but the lack of communication of those expectations, that's the seed that sows that conflict, right? At the end of the day, that's what really starts all that. Because what happens, you know, you have an expectation, it's not met, and you get annoyed, it builds up in you. I'm sitting here, I don't even know that I've broken a rule, right? I don't even know I've broken the expectation. But what do we do as human beings? We think to ourselves in our head, he did that on purpose. That was his intention. He intended to disrespect me, and that's why he did that. And then we build it up, and then it all kind of comes out at once. So completely and utterly agree, man. Sitting down, having an open and honest communication about your rules. And also, I think it's coming to a compromise, because that's really what relationships are about. You know, the beautiful thing is that we're so unique as people. We have our own rules. We have our own. We're just completely unique. So it's good. But why relationships work so well if we communicate is that they help us grow. right? That's the most beautiful thing, because if your rules are one way and my rules are another, and we have to find a way to work together, maybe that's going to force you to say, all right, well, you know, this rule I've got over here, now that I see it's causing conflict, maybe is it the most useful rule? Like, is it still true? And it's not so black and white either. Like, it doesn't mean just throw it away. Can I modify this rule a little bit so that it suits this person? But imagine how much it could change my life as well. And then the other person does the same thing. So you're both making subtle shifts in your rule book, and those shifts in amongst that relationship, that's why we can grow as individuals. That's how we can push each other to grow. And of course, this is to a point, right? So I mean, in my intimate relationship, I mean, with my girlfriend, and I'll share that example with you. I mean, we say, you know, we've come together, we understand each other's rules, and the basis for a good relationship is compromise. I'll compromise a little on my rules, you'll compromise a little on your rules, we'll grow in the process. At the same time, there's a very clear and definitive line. I can say, right now in my life, these are the rules that I will absolutely not budge on, right? Maybe that'll change, maybe not, but these are the rules I won't budge on. These are the rules she won't budge on. If there comes to a point in time where we both get into a deadlock in that is the point where you need to reassess the relationship itself. Now, I know that's a very intense thing to say, and it applies to business relationships as well, but that's just the reality we need to fix. Communicate those rules, make a compromise, and if you find a point that you can't compromise on, it's not the right time for that relationship. So it's only going to breed more conflict as we go. So I know that's a kind of different idea, but I mean, what do you think about that in terms of compromise and balancing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's, you know, having a girlfriend here as well, who's now living with me and stuff, like definitely have learned that as well. Like you have your set of rules for life and how you do things, and you can kind of run your own show. And, you know, you've got somebody that you're staying with. I know you're also staying with your girlfriend, like, and you do have to like sort of find ways to compromise. I'll admit though, like I'm not the best at it, and I've had to grow and learn a lot, and I still have a lot to learn and grow in that regard. But yeah, I agree with you about compromise, and it's actually crazy how similar it is if you compare a relationship like with a girlfriend or whatever it is, like to like being an employee and working in a company. Like there's many similarities there. Like maybe you don't like the environment at your job, you don't like the way that people treat you, the way they dress, talk, whatever it is. You're gonna have to compromise a little bit, meet each other in the middle, you get your work done, everything sort of works well. If not, like you said, then you got to reevaluate and say, like, is this the right fit? Am I actually the right person for this role? Or as the person who's doing the employee, you got to say, is this person right for me? Like we've tried to compromise, we've laid out the expectations, and it's still clashing. Maybe we should move on there. I don't know. So yeah, I agree with you about that point.
I
So
think, you know, the similarities there, you know, and I think, so last one point on this, because I think it's so important, is that, you know, we like to compartmentalize our relationships, you know, to business, life, intimate, whatever the case may be. At the bottom of it, it's all fundamentally the same thing. I mean, it's the same mechanics, the same processes. Some things are just more intense, and some things are less intense, but the basic rules apply, if that makes sense.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so if I had to take this in the direction of, so that's basically dealing with compromise and expectations for outside factors, for other people, work, that kind of thing. Now, if you take it like internal, and we talk about having high expectations for yourself, having expectations for where you should be in your career, how you should be like physically, what sort of fitness level you want to be at, what you want to achieve. I want to know, like, for people who are, I guess, like type A personality, driven achievers, that's how they enjoy life, by achieving things and pushing themselves. How do you know, like, have you seen this from your clients? How do you know when you're pushing yourself too hard and you're not letting yourself win enough? How do you know, like, is it just different for everyone? How do you find that balance between having very, very high expectations and unrealistic, unhealthy expectations?
In a simple sentence, are you happy? If you're not happy at this moment, right now, then that means that something in your external environment or something about yourself is not meeting the expectations that you have. It's as simple as that. And honestly, this particular area has been my biggest struggle. Personally, with self-development, with personal growth, this has been my biggest struggle. And it's so nice. It's such a great thing, though, because having worked through it quite a lot, you know, obviously we've still got room to grow, but having worked through it myself, I found it way more impactful for me to share with other people how to change it, right? So again, it's coming back to that. Are you happy right now? Like, I mean, right, like in this moment, are you happy in your life? Because that's really what's going to determine, you know, if those rules are effective. So I had to take a long, hard look at my rules and, you know, look at and say, you know, okay, well, you know, I'm getting all these results. You know, for example, like I'm getting good grades. You know, I've got great relationships at the moment. My body's fantastic. I'm bodybuilding. I'm doing my thing. But I was pissed off a lot of the time, right? And it was because I was consistently expecting more of myself. I would get 95 and say, well, there's 5% of a gap, right? I would, you know, get to this body fat and I say, oh, well, I can get even lower. So it's framing it in a way that you have to look at the long game. It's all these personal rules right now. So looking at those personal rules and those expectations of yourself and asking yourself, having these rules, is this putting me in a state of body and mind that is conducive to productivity, or is it conducive to being pissed off and unhappy? And if those rules are causing you to feel those negative emotions all the time, it's actually holding you back from the thing you're trying to get to the most, right? Because for me, it was that I had all these high expectations and I almost didn't want to let them go because I had this belief that because I had those high expectations, that's why I was able to do so well. And if I let go even a little bit, if I took my foot off the accelerator, I would lose everything, right? We tend to do that as humans, and I've seen a lot of my clients as well, right? They think that if they take their foot off the gas for even a second, everything is going to go and they're going to lose everything, which isn't true, right? Life isn't so black and white. So it's about modifying those rules in a way to say, listen, yes, I have high standards for myself, but my rules are focused on things I can control. Now, instead of saying, I will get this external result, and that is the standard, and I will not drop below it, I'm placing my rules. My rules are based on something that's external to me. So how I'm literally saying, okay, well, the decision about whether I'm going to be happy or not is based on something outside of me, which means that I'm not in control of it, which means I've given up control of the state I'm in. And I mean, why would we want to do that? We're so vulnerable. If we can reframe our rules and look at them as, what are my standards for how I want to act? What are my standards for the person I want to be, for the work ethic I want to put in? Then we're in control of it. And when we're in control of it, we can effectively meet those rules a lot better than if they are external to us. I don't know if that's making sense. Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. I definitely resonate the most with saying, like, I'm afraid to let these high standards and expectations for myself go, because then I'm going to lose on my drive. I'm just going to become like some washed up, don't really care, you know, whatever it is. Look back and you're 50 years old, you haven't really tried very hard at anything. Like, I guess I'm also like so scared of becoming that person that it's easy to adopt, like, I guess, unrealistic or unhealthy expectations and for work and for life and stuff. So I once heard this quote. I don't know who it was by, I can't remember, but it was like, when you have a desire for something, it's like making a contract with yourself that you're not going to be happy until you have it. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard it like that. I understand that message.
Yeah, I don't remember where it was from, but it was like, you make the contract when you desire something. You make a contract that you won't be happy until you have it. Now, that can be acceptable if it's like, cool, I want to bulk up to 90 kgs. I want to cut down to 70 kgs. I want to run a marathon, do an Ironman, come first in my class. These are like relatively short-term things, right? But if your expectations are like, I want to, you know, build out like a business, a group of 20 businesses. I want to build a business empire. I want to become an author or a #1 speaker, whatever it is that you want. These are very long-term goals that can last like 10, 20 years. And if you desire something that's so far ahead and you've made a contract with yourself that you won't be fully happy until you get there, then you've got like 5, 10, 20 years of like not really being super happy. So how would you break that down? Like, what would your advice be there?
Well, if you do that, you're screwed. I think that's the first place to start. And I think at the end of the day, it's you're putting off your happiness. And I mean, that's essentially what you're doing. I won't, and again, perfect. And that's why it's a perfect quote, because you're saying, I will be happy when this happens. And that's how all our rules are based. That's how every single emotion we experience is based on that. I say to myself, I will allow myself to experience the emotion of feeling respected if you do X, Y, Z. And if you don't do that, then I feel disrespected, right? Oh, you've taken away my respect. How could you take something from me that I don't have in the first place, right? So it's these little intricacies that are so crazy how the human mind works, because you know, setting up something like that is so true. You're literally pushing your happiness out and placing it on that external factor. And what I truly believe is, you know, it's made, of course, growing, creating, achieving things is absolutely fantastic, but it's not about that. It's not about achieving those things. It's about the person you become in the process of achieving those things. That's what's really important. And if we say, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be, because I mean, what are we saying when we're going to be happy? We're saying, I'm going to love myself the way I am. What else is happiness? Loving where you are and who you are. That, to me, that's what happiness is. So doing that, you're putting that off, and you're attributing fulfillment and positive, just feeling good, to something external. The thing is, and I've heard Tony Robbins say this, it doesn't matter if you have $1, $100, $1 billion. If you cannot be happy now, you will never be happy, because being truly happy and in a good state is a skill all by itself. Whereas achievements is a completely different thing. I mean, I'm sure you've seen, I know many people who haven't achieved much as far as society standards goes. They're the happiest people I've ever seen. I know people who literally turn over $1 billion a year and they're unhappy. So, you know, we have the social proof. If we put our expectations on things like that, long, and I'm not getting a bit off the topic here, sorry, but, you know, having those expectations on long-term big things, you're just putting off your happiness. And then why bother? Why bother getting the thing if you're not going to be happy?
I think the key from what you said there is like, not your happiness is placed on who you're becoming in the moment. So yes. It's like if you become a person that you're happy with, that you respect yourself, then you don't need to achieve anything external to then reach a point of happiness, right? It's like, but there's still work that needs to go into becoming a person that you want to become, right? Like, I mean, maybe you can share for yourself, but for me, it's like, if I'm waking up early and I'm setting out a plan for the week and I'm following that plan at least, 90%, feeling strong, I'm eating pretty good, I'm exercising, then I'm kind of in a state of like, yeah, I'm pretty happy with what's happening. And I don't think that, something external is really going to change that a lot. Like, any amount of money or success or material thing is going to change it. It's more about being in that state of the present, of who you are. Are you someone who you've become, where you're proud of that? Like, but what I'm saying is it still takes a lot of work to get to be that person, and you're constantly fighting those urges to not be that person. So it's, yeah, I guess expectations in terms of like, who do I want to be day to day? There's still work that needs to be put in to get to that place.
Certainly, man. I think, that's huge. And again, it's awesome. Again, talking about raising your standards to say, like you said, this is the kind of person I want to be. These are the kind of behaviors I want to exhibit. This is the way I want to impact people positively. Raising your standards there is going to have such a monumental effect on the rest of your life. The way I like to look at it is, there's ultimately, what I believe is that there's two things we need to master in life. There's the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. The science of achievement is a science, right? You want to lose 10 kgs? Eat well, work out. That's the science, right? You want to make $1 billion, build a business, make sure your profit margins are good, and keep on turning over, right? The art of fulfillment is an art. It's specific. What fulfills me isn't going to fulfill you. Maybe I give you, you get six-pack abs and you're the biggest bodybuilder in the world today. Maybe that's not what you want. Maybe that's not what fulfills you, right? So balancing those things, achieving. So yes, achieve the things that you want, achieve the things you want to create, and then, simultaneously rather, focus on the art of fulfillment, being the person that you believe you should be. And I think that balance, it's incredibly complex to first, kind of work out. It took me a while to understand that, but I think that is the balance that I personally want to strike. And from my work with people, I've learned that it holds true.
I really like that differentiating between a science and an art. Like the science is a step-by-step process you can follow, and it's guaranteed to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
Other one is more of an art. That's more of like being self-aware, trying to figure out, do you need to be so hard on yourself? Back yourself a little bit more, give yourself a break, enjoy who you are in the present, that kind of thing.
Exactly, and being fulfilled, what fulfills you won't necessarily fulfill me. Like I said about the people, that make a lot of money and are unhappy, and the people who don't make a lot of money and they're happy. Their blueprint, their expectations, their rules about being happy are based on things that are internal, not external. And if we base it on things that are external, what is your brain going to do? You get to $1 million, cool. Now I'm going to be happy when I get to 10 million, 100 million, right? Again, type A achiever personality, we're going to keep reaching, which is great when we want to achieve things, but not when we want to feel fulfilled. That's why it's a dual thing. We have to do both.
Yeah, you have to try to reach like fulfillment first with what you have internally, and then the rest should just be like exciting, stimulating work that sort of drives you, I guess.
Exactly, and I think that's the thing. It's being able to say like, yes, I want this result, but I'm not attaching my happiness to it. Yes, I'm going to be happy when I get it, but not necessarily because of what I've got, because I would have raised and met my expectations of the amount of work and dedication I want to put in. That's what gives the performance. The achievement is good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we all want nice things, right? We all want it. We want $1 million. I want $1 million. I don't just want to sit here and be full. I want $1 million. But again, it's an inward and an outward look. And I think, we chatted about it a little while ago in one of the clips, that mental fitness, to be able to consistently shift your focus from the future to the present to the past and get really good at that, because you can't be fulfilled if you're in the future. It's impossible. You can only be fulfilled now. Now is the only moment that matters. This is the only moment you can feel fulfilled in, but you can achieve in the future. That is possible. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but also I feel like there's quite a cool sense of like achievement, or like, this idea of things being realized when you thinking about something in the future for quite a while and you're planning towards it, you put in the work in the present, whatever it is, and then that thing actualizes and it becomes real. Like there's quite a cool sense of achievement that comes with that. And I find like a lot of happiness is attached to that personally. I don't know about you.
Definitely. I know. I mean, I do it all the time. I mean, I have nights where I can't sleep because I'm just so excited about, what's going to come in the future, what I'm going to achieve. But again, you see, I think it comes down to the fact that, I can still be happy now. And at the end of the day, I'll be happy if it doesn't happen. But I still want to achieve it, because I will know personally that I have made an impact or just proven to myself that I can do it. So I completely agree. I think, being excited for the future and for something to actualize, that's how we get things done, right? But it's knowing that, and I mean, it's getting deeper. I mean, this is fundamentally where it's at. It's knowing that even if you don't do that, you're still enough and you're still loved. And again, I know that's deep, but that is it. Those are the two fears we have as human beings. I won't be enough, and if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. We can just remember that, regardless of what we can achieve, we'll be in a good state. And when we're in a good state, the chances of achieving that goal are 10 times more likely, in my opinion.
Wow, that's a lot. When you actually give yourself a bit of a break and you figure out the fulfillment problem first, then it's like you can go much faster and you can, cruise towards those things that you wanted to achieve that are external, because you're not really bound by them. They're not so big. It's not like, you're not attaching all of your happiness and fulfillment on the success or the achievement of certain things. You're not so careful in taking on things, because you're like, might win this one, I might lose this one, I might have to change direction, whatever it is, like happy and fulfilled regardless. These things are just fun and I want to just achieve them because they're exciting.
Oh, 100%. And I went through a long state when I learned about this, where I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, well then what do I do? Do I just make sure I'm fulfilled and then not try to achieve anything? But that didn't really sit with me. I was like, nah, that's not really my personality. I want to achieve things. So that's when I realized, again, and I mean, maybe it's just me personally, but life's not so black and white. We think it's always on the wall, or it's this way or it's that way. It's not. There's a middle ground. I mean, nothing in life I've experienced so far has been very simple and black and white. I don't know about you, but so I think it really is that balance in between of knowing that you will be happy, you will be fulfilled, but yes, I can achieve things, and there is a sense of joy in that, and that's perfectly good.
Yeah. I think this might be one of the conversations that we've had where I don't want it to sound like I'm giving advice here, because it's like I'm actually rather taking it, because I feel like of anyone who's even listening to this, I'm probably the worst when it comes to like focusing too much on the future and tying happiness to like certain goals and seeing a certain life for yourself. Like I feel like of all people, I think I might even rewatch this and like just take the advice for myself. But yeah, I think that's really cool. And it sounds like you actually reached a sort of a point where you decided that you need to stop doing this in your own life, right?
Oh, of course. And I mean, I was about to say, I mean, what you just said now, I'm in literally the exact same boat. I mean, and everything I say, you know, and I say this to my clients, and I'll say about every single thing I say, yeah. One of my strengths and abilities is being able, and funny enough, I learned this to go to law school quite a lot, taking very confusing, complex stuff and finding a simple, effective way to communicate it and an effective way to build it into ourselves. I'm still in the process of building it into myself. Right? Like I'm not perfect. Like I'm exactly the same as you. I catch myself often. All I'm doing is thinking about the future. Okay, cool. You know, like it'll be good when my business gets there, when I can do this, all right, when I can do this with my girlfriend, then this will be good. What. I'm not perfect at it, right? It's the same thing as, you know, being a personal trainer. I can show you how to bench press, but it's your job to go and actually work it. Do the bench press, get bigger, and hell, you might get bigger than me. Right? Because you put in more work with it. My skill is teaching skills and teaching complex skills in a simple way. And that's why, and this is the beautiful thing, and I'm getting excited about, I'll share it. This is the beautiful thing about coaching, is that I can work with people that are more successful in some areas than I am. They're more successful, but understanding these crucial skills and tools, right? It maximizes it for me, right? It's the same thing as me saying to you, like, listen, I've got an investment and you're going to make 20%. You give me 1,000 rand, you're going to make 200 back. I can take my same tool and give it to someone who has 1 billion rand. They will take it and they will have a much bigger effect. We're all at different stages of where we actually are, but learning these skills and tools is important because it'll maximize what we already have. And that's why I completely agree. I'm not perfect at a lot of these things. I'm sure you aren't either. It's not going to stop me from sharing it, because even if someone's further on the line, if they use this, it's going to maximize what they have even more.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm really going to watch this one back and actually try to figure out how to map this out for my own life. Like I think just like give yourself a break, you know, have your goals and expectations for the future, but figure out the fulfillment problem short term. Like find that in the present and in your people that are around you, whatever it is, like that's where you find the fulfillment. So I'm gonna work on this. It'll be interesting to chat about this again, like towards the end of the year, and see like, you know, the differences.
And see our progress. You know, one of the cool things I like about doing this is that the more I share and the more people watch, the more people can hold me accountable. You know, and I tell my clients as well. I tell them, you know, you see me doing something that I've taught you, and I'm not doing it. Call me out, right? Call me out straight away. That's why we're in this, right? We're not in this to be perfect. We're in this to help each other and to help each other grow. So that's, I mean, the same thing with my girlfriend, you know, we'll call each other out, right? I heard her saying something to her coaching client and I called her out and I said, you're not doing that right now, right? Doesn't feel great, but that's how we grow, right? It's about punching these things into ourselves and just, that's why this is good. And now I'm on a public platform, so now it's even bigger. So now my standards will be higher purely because I don't want to embarrass myself, but it's good.
Yeah. Awesome. No, well, thank you so much. I think that was a cool conversation. Just how to manage expectations for people around you, for external circumstances, and then also for yourself, like how to, you know, find that balance between having high expectations for yourself, but also finding fulfillment in the present. So thanks so much for sharing that. And to anyone who's watching this and tuning in, and, you know, please like let us know what you think. Let us know if you agree or disagree with something. But yeah, it's awesome. Thanks again for another cool conversation.